Morning, guys, on Matthew 16, reading from verse 13 to 20. Now, when Jesus came into the district of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say the Son of Man is?" And he's asking them, who do people say he is? Because it's a reference to himself. Who do they say Son of Man is? Probably one of the most important questions we need to ask ourselves and ask others is, who do we say Jesus is? And they said, some say John the Baptist, others Elijah, and others Jeremiah, or one of the prophets. And that's the most common answer, that Jesus is some form of prophet, some sort of high up religious figure, someone who's done some amazing things. Most people don't deny him as a historical figure who's done many miracles, and so they look up to Jesus. But that's not enough for salvation. We need to acknowledge him as God. And they said some, and then Jesus says in verse 15, he said to them, "But who do you say that I am?" We've all got to ask that question. Who do we say Jesus is? It doesn't matter about the popular opinions out there. At the end of the day, when we stand before God, we need to know and we need to acknowledge him as Lord. And then Simon Peter replied, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." And so he understood who Jesus was. He was not just a prophet. He was the Son of the living God. He was God himself, from God. And Jesus answered, "Blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father who is in heaven." And so ultimately, saving faith comes through God opening our eyes. Unless God calls you, you're not going to come. And so salvation is all of God. We need to pray that people's eyes will be opened. We can explain these things, explain who Jesus is, but at the end of the day, they need to have their eyes opened to who he is, who he really is. So God can only do that. But I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church. And then he uses that word Peter in reference, changes his name from Simon to Peter, and that means rock. And ultimately Jesus is that cornerstone. He is the rock on which the church is built. Yes, he uses Peter, yes, he uses Paul, yes, he uses us, who are all part of those living stones and part of the church, but he is the cornerstone. And then it goes on to say, "And the gates of hell shall not prevail against it." The gates of hell representing death itself. Even death will not stop people from entering the heaven. In fact, death of Jesus, by Jesus' death, we now enter into heaven. You see the persecution and people dying and the gospel spreading. Death does not stop the gospel from spreading. And so gates are also, in a sense, defensive. So Satan's trying to put up all these gates to stop the advancement of the gospel, but he can't, because the power of God will overcome all of Satan's schemes of trying to stop the gospel going forward. "I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven." And so the keys are given to the church to preach the gospel of the good news, and that's the power of God to save, and the kingdom gets advanced by the salvation of souls. "I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven." Very same terminology that's used in Matthew 18 with church discipline. But ultimately, if folk reject that gospel, they reject who Christ is, that he is Lord, that he is God, they're going to reject going to heaven. But if they accept it, those keys will let them into heaven. If they accept Jesus with faith, that he is the Lord of their life, they'll go to heaven. Then he strictly charged the disciples to tell no one that he was the Christ. Just remember, if they started to proclaim it, that people might start making him king. He needed to go to the cross. He still hadn't gone to the cross. It's only after the cross and his death that the advancement of the kingdom and the gospel will go out into all the world.